Howdy, everybody. Welcome to the third live of The Collective, and we are kicking her off basically with Mr. Shaun Taylor and Zach. You know what? I don't actually know your last name, Zach. You're muted, by the way. Technical problems right off the bat. What's your last name, Zach? Sorry, I don't know how to
It's
say it.
Hussein.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we are here, we're talking live, and a lot of the questions we've gotten so far of The Collective is, what is The Collective? So we tried to go live on Instagram, and I think my phone decided to die mid-conversation, so let's kick her off again. We'll jump back into it. Zach, what is we're going to talk about what The Collective is to ourselves, and then we'll talk about where we're going to go, what we're going to do, what the plan is, and then go from there. So, Zach, what is The Collective in your mind?
Sure. I believe the collective is bigger than us. It is a group of like-minded individuals that have different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
So, for myself, I'm in entrepreneurship and marketing and branding, but I'm very much interested in the metaphors and analogies of the tactical world. And that's where I can learn new skills from the collective and individuals like yourselves.
Perfect. Shaun, what about yourself?
I think when this whole thing kicked off, trying to establish a better way to do things, a more unconventional way, let's call it a more modern way, a way that isn't really being done out there. In my mind, what I was hoping for is a means to create a solution that is solved by the people who are looking for a solution. And so by that, I mean collecting people together in something called the collective so that they can help us, me, you, and anyone else who is interested in just simply becoming more awesome, becoming better as a human being. And as I see it in my visualized future, it is a bunch of cool people, guys and girls, various ages, various backgrounds, law enforcement, first responder, military, veterans, shopkeepers, janitors, horse riders. It doesn't matter what you are, what you've done in the past, what you think you might do in the future. Just a means for us all to get together and swap ideas about how to be more positive in life so that the movement forward is something to look forward to every day when you get out of bed, and keeping it away from politics, religion, and race so that no one feels like they're going to be entering into a confrontational moment. I just want a place where I can hang out with friends who are cool, that inspire me in a positive environment so that I look forward to hanging out there.
Yeah. I really, when we got started, I thought of this going to be initially I thought of it as like a repository of information, something like a library where you could just go and, I want to learn about this today and I'll take that and I'll learn that. But what it's slowly turning into, and what I've seen more and more from the interaction of people that want to get involved, is that this is going to be a place, it's a garden, basically. It's a place to grow. It's a place to really develop yourself and develop those around you and help push, drive, whatever somebody's needing in that moment, that'll be available to them. So that's what I always saw it, or at least that's what I'm seeing now, I should say.
Well, it won't be available to them until they start asking the questions or start looking within the collective for a way to get something available. And so if it doesn't exist within the collective already, they've just got to show up and check things out and think, man, I'd really like to know what the best boots are to walk really long distances in order to achieve that badge. And so all they have to do is ask the question, and the answer will be provided by someone or some people, maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe 30 people will have an opinion on what's worked for them in the past in respect to long distance burden carrying boots. Just as a question that I've had in my line of questions that I need to answer, that I get DMs from on the regular, and rather than me in isolation answering that question saying, well, here's what I found. Well, now that person gets to ask that kind of a question, not just of me, but of a bunch of other people who have opinions and experience broader than mine. And as a collective, we can help refine that answer more holistically, and not just from a bunch of veterans or current serving or whatever. It could be someone on a ranch in the middle of Manitoba who has found a boot that I'm not aware of that works really well under these conditions.
I couldn't agree more. Zach, you got a point on that?
No, I was going to ask is, what was out there before the collective, as this thought process? What was out there for you guys as veterans? As you guys know, individuals as first responders, what was out there as resources?
Nothing.
It was...
And what's currently out there? Nothing.
It was piecemealed from what I always saw, was that it was like you'd get a quarter of an answer, right? If you wanted to really develop develop yourself physically, you could find somebody that could coach you. If you wanted to develop yourself mentally, you could eventually find someone that could help you develop that way. But there was nothing large scale about it. It was very, I need to dig in order to get an answer from that one person, and that was the basically the extent of it that I saw. Lots of people, and the other part is we're all spread out, right? And one of what Shaun was just saying was that what the collective is going to become is, I can ask, Shaun, what's the best boot you had for tromping through the mountains? And he'll give me his answer, but I am not Shaun, right? I'm 220 pounds. I'm 6'6". I need, maybe those style of boots don't work for someone of my size, because that does change the fact, like, your physicality will change. But also, what if his experiences in the Rockies, and what you really need is someone who's been walking around the Appalachian Trail, whatever that, Appalachian, there we go.
Yeah.
Because I get hiking boots versus climbing boots versus, patrolling boots versus et cetera, whatever. By having a collective to ask that question to, you actually get to refine your own question, because it's not just what are the best boots. It's not just, what's good for long distance, not just for weight bearing. It's all of those things put together, and the experience that we're going to be collecting within the collective will be able to help you refine those questions. If that makes sense.
What was some of your personal experiences when you needed these questions or these answers? Where would you guys go? Obviously, there's the legions out there.
Nowhere. Nowhere. I mean, what? So let me bring it to a real answer. So when I was coaching athletes for 15 years, they would turn to me and ask me the single source question. So I would be the single source answer. And my answers would be driven by my own personal experience in the racing environment and as a coach. But I would also back that up with a boatload of research. So every question that I was asked, I didn't just simply blurt out an answer off the top of my head. It would be backed by science, as an example. And so some of the science was from dedicated forums. Some of the science was from dedicated sites, static sites. Some of it was like interpretive. Some of it was in black and white. And so it was my job to draw on my experience and then back it up with hours of research to provide one answer. And that took me years and years and years until I could finally deliver an answer with only just a very brief confirmatory check to see if the science had changed, to see if the attitudes had changed, to see if anything new had shown up. But it was always me doing the heavy lifting, and it's time consuming, and it was only a one-on-one. And so looking at this problem, or this thing that we're trying to do right now, as I see it, someone bouncing in to ask a question, not just of me, but of the collective. Now a bunch of people can provide opinion, experience-based opinion, to help refine the answer for the individual. And then they can ask a qualifying question like, okay, I'm a big guy and I'm walking in this and this is my intent. What do you think would be a great idea? 3, 4 different solutions. They can then look at those solutions, then ask a refining question that then ultimately, through a process of not just a single source, but through a collective, they get an answer that they feel is more holistic than just one guy providing a single source answer.
A lot of my experience is like it's experience. I didn't have anybody to ask the questions to, so I just had to like figure it out. You know, we go back to the whole boot reference. I had to try out a bunch of boots. I had to see what fit, what I liked, what I didn't like. I had to take them out to the field, see if they lasted or not. And I know a lot of guys that had that same issue, was that no one we talked to had an answer for us, especially within, you know, the unit where I was. It was like, you should wear your issued stuff. And we're like, but the issued stuff doesn't work very well. And they go, well, it's issued. You should wear it. And we're like, that's not a great answer. So I'm going to go outside. I'm going to start looking at stuff. But we didn't have any of that outside access or that outside information to draw from. Right. So a lot of it was just personal experience, just, you know, doing the heavy lifting, as Shaun was saying, that you're doing the work. You got to do your own research and your own development, your own, all these things. Whereas what I see this collective becoming, as I said, it's going to be a garden. You know, people are going to plant seeds, and that's going to develop into something else. And then somebody else is going to look at it and be like, oh man, that's a great point. Or, oh, you know what? I have experience in X. Blech. And then they can.
Now, an important technological distinction between what you've just presented and what we're trying to do is a massive step change. And it looks like this. I can go out and find out which boot is right for me by mining a bunch of forums, spending days and days reading tons of material. 50% of it is pure nonsense. 25% of it is kind of nonsense because the guy or girl might have only worn those boots for 10 days. And then there might be 5% maybe of highly experienced, multi-year opinion, legit answer somewhere in that forum. But you got to wade through all of that garbage in order to maybe find a little bit of a gem. But even when you do find the gem, you're looking at an answer provided by Flyboy123, whatever that guy's call sign is on that forum. And I don't know him. And I don't know if he's 14 years old or if he's 44 years old. And I don't know if he's ever worn any green campaign on his face, or if he's, you know, only dreamt about it. And so Flyboy123 means nothing to me. But I do know what has a lot of impact is when someone can look me right in the eyes, just like this right now, and say, oh, that's Shaun. And I understand that Shaun has this amount of experience, or his opinion is, I'm going to give Shaun a 7 out of 10 because he's never steered me wrong, but I still don't know if I trust him. And I'm now a real person that individual can interact with in the collective.ca. Whereas out on the forums, trying to find all of the answers in anonymous posters that, quite frankly, could be a bot. You know, that's what's wrong with forums. And so if you're out there mining for information on anonymous forums as an anonymous person, you're doing yourself two disservices. One is you're maybe getting information from a bot. And the second disservice is you're not forming relationships. You're actually not dealing with another human being like a human being should, and that is creating relationships. So over a course of time, you can gain trust or you can gain a friendship while still getting your answer. I think that's a pretty important distinction.
So getting spit out from the military, individuals didn't really have many resources. That leads to isolation. That leads to substance abuse, whatever form that is, and mental illness. Or how does someone benefit from the collective? You know, great, I can learn how to find the best hiking boots. But other than that, what is there for us? Do people like isolation, especially coming from the military, or do they want brother and sisterhood?
No, I absolutely think that they want that brotherhood, and I absolutely think that they want answers to that struggle,
Mhm.
and whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever vice, whatever addiction it is, it doesn't matter what the addiction is. I think that people want solutions to those addictions, but again, it's hard to turn to an anonymous forum as an anonymous person to get anonymous answers that may or may not have been created by a person, and quite frankly, may or may not be righteous or not. And so out there kind of scrambling around in the wild, and it's wild out there.
Yeah.
And scrambling around the wild looking for answers on like really important subjects, like how to manage my addiction. Unless you're dealing one-on-one with a professional, looking them in the eye and thinking, okay, my doctor has my best interests in mind. Okay, that should be a pretty understandable case of I'm in the right hands right now. But go out onto the internet as an anonymous person into an anonymous forum and think that that's good advice. I don't know about that. And so I do know that amongst all of my friends that will be on the collective, there's a lot of them have experienced a lot of struggles, and they are real people that you can look in the eye and think to yourself, oh, I know that guy, or I've heard about that guy. Oh, he's legit, or she's legit. And I can listen to them in a non-confrontational manner, in a positive environment, where I'm not feeling like the conversation is going to devolve into race, politics, or religion. And it can be just a place where someone can get a decent answer from a decent human being that may help calibrate them in a direction that they'd never considered before. I mean, we're not therapists, but we could maybe be better therapists than actual therapists in some regard.
You guys find healing through this process of giving.
Absolutely.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
One of the things also is that, like, I say this pretty regularly, the words are powerful, right? And the way you talk to yourself matters a great deal. But it also matters a great deal that other people speak the same language, right? And, especially for vets and military and all these things, it helps that we don't need to explain ourselves, right? I say, oh yeah, I was an engineer, and Shaun's like, oh yeah, I get you. And he has a general idea as to what we did. But then again, everybody can. This is the benefit, is that we can build the context that, Shaun and I have, because we both serve, but within the collective, we can then build that context for others as well. So that somebody who has never worn green campaign on their face, or trying to like scrape that cam stick across your face and it's frozen solid and it's not working, they can understand what it's like to deal with that. They can get an inkling of it. And then once you have a general understanding of it, then maybe you go, oh man, that sounds horrible, or it sounds awesome, or it sounds like some of the best times that I ever had in the military were horrible. Nobody else would want to experience them, but they were so integral into who I am as a person in the long run, that I pushed through the difficulty, that I made it past all the issues, that I made it down the road. That, that's why I'm a mental health advocate, is that I know what it's like to go down the rabbit hole. I know what it's like to climb back up, and I know what it's like to go down again, and so on and so forth. And all the people out there that are searching for that someone who just uses the right words, that knows what I'm going through, I don't have to sit and explain my whole life story for them to go, oh, right, okay. Gotcha, roger that, right? Like,
Well, what you don't have to explain is who you are. And that's the difference between this and an anonymous forum. Flyboy123. Like, who is that dude? I don't know. If I don't know him, if there's no legitimacy to Flyboy 123, what good is that? What kind of advice is that? How am I gonna take that kind of information on if it could be a freaking bot?
The three of us chatted earlier about scarcity. I brought up a book by Robert Greene. And Shaun, you said, well, I don't know his story, but I have been on a mountaintop in the cold trenches with a rifle, and I know what it's like with a limited amount of food and supply.
That's
what
right.
can the
I understand scarcity.
And what can the everyday individual learn from that? So I'm not in the military. I'm not a vet. I'm not a first responder. What are some things you'd hope that an everyday person could learn from your story or moments and parts of your story?
Well, that's a great example. And rather than going into a long song and dance about the things that I understand that scarcity taught me, what I would say is that's a great example of what can be achieved within the collective. And so, I don't know Robert Greene's background or his story. I know he's a prolific author. I know that there's a lot of people follow him. We'd mentioned actually about Simon Sinek and how, I just, for the first time I saw him in one of my Instagram ads and I was like, oh yeah, that guy, isn't that the guy who did a TED talk? And that's about all I know about the guy. But I get lots of people, I get people in my DMs and say, hey, you sound just like Robert Greene, or hey, you sound just like Simon Sinek. And I'm like, who are those dudes? But the things that maybe make them believe that I sound like those guys or that I've read their stuff and I'm just parroting off these kind of authors. These things are just like universal truths in a sense that are achieved. I didn't learn these things in a library. I didn't learn these things practicing for a TED talk. I just got my ass kicked and learned some lessons through the process. And, when you're living in a frozen trench with very little for weeks and weeks, you learn a few things about what is important in life. And I tell you what isn't important, all of the Christmas shopping on Amazon that people are scrambling to do right now and spend as much money as they can on things that are going to be plastic and thrown away in a week. And so scarcity teaches you what's really important. And this conversation could go on for days, but they're the kind of conversations that are relevant within the collective.ca. And it's not because of my opinion. I mean, I'm not that relevant, but I have a bunch of friends who, as a combined force, can make these kind of questions and answers really relevant because they're not just coming from me. They're coming from people who are actually people that you can see with your eyeballs, reach out and poke in a virtual domain and believe that they actually have the experience to provide these answers that just didn't come out of a book, but were learned the hard way and were learned so hard that they're known truths.
Yeah. One of the key things that I think I caught out of what you're saying, Shaun, there was it really is more about what we can give because we've been through it. Now, that doesn't mean that we're trying to alleviate the difficulty that someone would have to go through to actually, deal with this. Because, as Shaun and I can tell you, there's only one way to experience sitting in a trench in minus 20. And that's by sitting in a trench in minus 20. there's
right.
No way.
You can't read about it. Well, you can read about it and imagine.
But
and then you can take that imagination and build out some sort of dialogue that you're going to sell as a course for $100. Yep. But that it's worthless. And
the next level of that is that for what we want to accomplish, at least this is what I see as the collective, is that what we can then explain, as Shaun said, is what's important in those times. Not that you shouldn't have to go through these hard times or that you got to struggle the same way we did. It's just that in order for, when you do experience these time frames, when you do hit these periods where you're like, oh man, you're now sitting in a trench, metaphorical trench in minus 20, and you're just sitting there going, my life is horrible, oh my God, and there's scarcity all around you, and you have nothing. But if you actually, when you go into the collective and you look at it and you hear from the stories and you hear from the people and you talk to them directly, and you're looking them in the eye saying, you know, it's really important, keeping your hands warm. And it's, you know, something small like that where they go, oh, right. And then they gain a little bit of access into that, the difficulty that we have dealt with. And then they can learn and grow, and then they can pass it on to the next crew, and they can pass on, hey man, you should join the collective because we're learning this stuff and we're learning that stuff. It's not so much about, you know, we're here to teach you. We're here to teach you. No, we're here to grow.
Camp.
All of us are here. This is what we want to do. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to build. Shaun wants to learn, grow, build. You want to learn, grow, build. This is what we're here to do. And, you know, I've said it a couple times on the other lives we've done, was that it's for the collective, by the collective. We're going to build this one brick at a time from everybody else, from the collective's ideas. What is it that people want? Boom. Let's get it up there. We'll get a SME, a subject matter expert out here, and we'll get someone talking about it, because the information's out there. It's all out there. We're just going to collate it a little bit.
The important thing about the collective is, you know, you're not just looking at it as one way. I'm telling you what to do. You're asking for, what do they want? What do people want? And then having an interactive platform, which I find fantastic and fascinating.
So let's use the trench thing as an example to explore the potentiality of the collective. So sitting in a trench for a couple of weeks, freezing, it's the suck, you've got scarcity, life isn't looking so positive. And that could be in training, or it could be in the Ukraine. So one aspect is, this is how you keep your feet dry and warm. This is where you put your hands. This is how you look after this. Your compass should go in that pocket. Your magazine should be there, and etc. That's one way to look at it. But I think of that as kind of small-minded. I think of that as just, those are just physical skills that can be learned in time by nearly anyone. But the real stuff that I'm interested in is proposing that question of how to do that. Sounds like there's someone at the front door. Can propose that question of how to do that trench life better. And I would say this, the important lesson is, look at the guy across from you, the other guy in the trench. That's what you should be counting on. That's what you should be thinking about when you're in those moments, is not how to keep my hands warm, but how, as a team, me and the other guy in the trench can work together to be more effective, to start crushing it in that trench. And then once we're crushing it in the trench, now we're looking over the trench and we're going to crush that. And then what we're doing from that perspective is managing our trench, seeing what the terrain is all around us, looking at the guys to our left and right in their trenches, interlocking our arcs of fire, nodding at each other and saying, I'm good to go, they're good to go, they're good to go, we're all good to go. And now we're not just talking about keeping your hands warm, but we're talking about much larger, much more intellectual conversations, much more, to me anyway, deeper, meaningful conversations that I want to have. And so the collective, here's what will get me going to the collective, is not how to keep my hands warm in a trench, because I freaking solved that ages ago. And so I'm an example of a part of the demographic that will be interested in going, because there's cool people with cool ideas that I look forward to going into to make me think and make me better. And so the answer can't just be, well, dude, if your hands are cold, put them in your freaking pockets. Check. Who's got the next question? So there will be enough people involved in the collective that it won't be a challenging conversation, but it should be a conversation that brings other ideas to mind other than just put your hands in your pockets, dude.
Absolutely. What do you guys think? What is the next step for the collective? I mean, we got 12 days right now before we before the website launches, and we have we have content on there. We're going to have stuff available for people to consume, for lack of a better word, but also, you know, spaces that they can engage. But where's the next stage? Where do we go once we get some interaction from the people, from the collective? What's next?
Well, I'd like to ask Zach the question because, you know, Zach has been involved in this from the earliest inception of, we should probably do something about this. And that came about because Zach showed interest in the veteran community and started having some veteran guests on his podcast. And through the process, I watched, and I'm not speaking for Zach. Zach can clarify this in a moment. But as I watched Zach go through that process of having us on his podcast as a first kind of thing, I would say, I saw Zach change his ways. I saw Zach have a fresh approach to life, and he recalibrated himself through the process of just kind of tracking what we're doing and how we think and how we talk and how we our experiences. And so I feel that Zach is the best person to answer the why of what we're doing this, because I know why I'm doing it. But Zach is a unique example of he's almost starting from a clean slate of kind of how our world turns. And so I'm interested to hear what Zach has to say about his thoughts on this subject.
Thanks, Shaun. No, I definitely do think that we're going to be moving in a direction where, like myself, it made sense. You know, it clicked. And there are so many people that, like quotes, like certain elements of life, but don't apply things. You know, listening to you guys, going through the stuff that you guys went through, I say, this is going to be great. This all makes sense. And if there is nothing out there, why can't we come together? You know, we live in an age today that's got all these tools and opportunities to bring us together. I mean, you know, we've talked about it back in the days of the legions. There was no technology. That's where the story started and died. And now they can live on, and people can learn, as long as they're methodical, thought out, and educated questions and answers. We want people to interact.
Great.
We want people to talk and not isolate themselves and just stop there. You know, so Shaun might say, here's a little task to try and do. And there might be a little workbook for that individual to go through and see, did they apply it to their life, or did they just leave it and just watch another YouTube video or another video out there? Can we work through things together and learn and make mistakes? So you asked, what's the next steps? We're 12 days out. I think, what does the individuals want out there? What do they want us to be? Because at the end of the day, I mean, you guys have mentioned this. This is not a conventional approach. This is an unconventional approach. There's authenticity here. There's a lot of righteousness here. Doing it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I was a coach, it was pretty easy for me because athletes were connecting with me every single day. They were obligated to connect with me every single day. And that was important because it formed a expectation by me for them to connect to me every single day, which meant accountability. And so one of the things that is missing in forums is you go there as an anonymous person to an anonymous forum to interact anonymously, and then you bounce. And then 24 hours later, you start it all again, and you haven't moved 1 inch because no one's holding you accountable. Because you didn't exist, the forum doesn't actually exist as real people that you can look it in the eye and poke in the chest and know that they're real. And because none of it is really has any accountability into it, you never have to get off your couch. In fact, you can keyboard warrior your way into the future, thinking that you've got it all figured out, and already be living 4 years in the future, thinking that you're now the chin-up master of the world. because you joined as an anonymous person into an anonymous chin-up master forum and thought, this is me, I'm good to go. And 24 hours later, because you got no interaction, you got no accountability, you don't even know if it's real. You don't even know if the advice you're getting is legit. You'll never step into your excellence if no one's contacting you the day after and saying, hey, bro, how's a chin-up bar? Have you bought one yet? That chin-up bar never gets bought 4 years later because no one's ever poked you in the chest and said, yeah, I know you had big plans, so where are you at with that?
Shaun, we talked about the trenches, metaphorically, for someone that's listening to this. I'm not going to go out in the trenches and sit there for weeks, but what could I do in my own life to work through something? And maybe down the line we'll have a course on that or something, a workbook that people can go through. But what would be something that someone could apply to their life mentally to work through?
I talk about it on a pretty regular basis, and it's a great question. And I think very simply, it kind of is spelled like this: adversity. Mm-hmm. You've got to embrace adversity, and that can come in many forms. And I've talked about a little bit about how you can combine physical and mental adversity. The example that I just recently threw out there was, get on your bike and ride until the tire tracks in front of you that you're following disappear. And once they disappear, that's when your ride begins, because now you're riding into the unknown with no tire tracks in front of you. And you're not actually chasing anyone. You're only chasing yourself. You're seeing how far you can go without any limitations on you can only go this far. You enter into the unknown until you can't go any further, whatever that means to you. And then you turn around and you head back. But without that goal of putting an unknown task in front of you where you're going to face some struggles, well, until then, it's just thinking about adversity rather than engaging in adversity. And adversity can come in many ways and very simple ways and almost non-impactful ways, in the sense of you don't have to feel shattered every day. You don't have to feel like you just ran through the gauntlet and then tomorrow's going to be another gauntlet and you're dreading going through the gauntlet. Adversity can come in so many ways that are manageable. But usually it takes a little bit of guidance in order to get a person heading down the right course so that then they can self-evolve in the process and then can start creating their own sense of what is adverse for them. And now they're off to the races.
We do this in the military all the time, right? You stress inoculation. You build upon things. You don't start with, a brand new recruit off the street and say, okay, here's a rifle. There's the trenches, right? That does happen sometimes, and it has happened in history. But ideally, within a military, with an effective military, you take someone, you bring them into basic training, and you start with small adversities, right? How to fold your stuff, making sure you can march together, all that stuff. And Shaun and I talked about our thoughts on drill and stuff on the last live, but that's what it is. It's small adversities, things that anybody can do, right? I could probably teach you how to do how to stand at attention and stand at ease online without much of an issue and get you to do it correctly. But the issue isn't that whether or not we can teach you how to do it. It's whether or not you can stand up to the adversity of me screaming in your face when you don't bring your knee up to 90 degrees. That's just a small part of it, right? And then you build upon that, and you build upon that, and you start adding layers to it, and you start adding skill sets, and you start adding time, and you start adding things where you have to, boxes, and you have to stay within these lines, and you have to be able to do these things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we're not here to do that.
Well, that's one part of it.
Sure.
So adversity is a simple part of something that can be discussed in the collective, but a greater part to it, the most important part of all, which is contrary to the solutions that are out there right now on forums, is you can hop into the collective and you can be looking for the way forward. And let's call it, you're going to get introduced to some adversity. And then It's not that you're going to be held accountable, because that's the missing part in forums. It's not that you're going to be held accountable. It's just that you can choose to be accountable. And by that, I mean, let's say you want to, you say, hey, Shaun, I'm looking to get better. How do I do that? And I'm going to say, Zach, I got a little bit of homework for you. This is what you're going to do. And then when you've gone and done it, get back to me, but not to me. Get back to the collective and give me your thoughts. Or, Zach, here's your homework. Go get her done. Once it's done, checked off, you come back to the collective and you give a little 60-second video on, you know what? Shaun was kind of right, but he was kind of wrong. And here's what I learned. And now we're all growing, including me. So I see it not only as a means to learn how to do things better, I see it as a feedback loop for everyone who's watching you engage in the process, gain for themselves as well.
We talked about humanizing the brand and authenticity and righteousness. Why is it important for us to be raw the way we are and not overly produced of a video and keep it like this, relatable? The importance of humanization. Why is that important now more than ever? Let's just say that.
Well, in the past, I'll give my quick answer and then Chance. In the past, I've mentioned this, and I think that one of the large things that are wrong with social media right now, particularly in this genre where people are trying to help people, is first of all, they start off by trying to help people by making money for themselves. And so that just ain't me. I mean, if money ever shows up, then so be it, but it's not my focus. My focus is just to be helpful, to serve. And so if it costs me money, then I'm still going to try to serve. So it has to start from the right place. But the second part is it has to be authentic help. And what I see out there right now is a lot of contrived help, a lot of disingenuous help, a lot of inauthentic help. So my answer to you might only be 30 seconds, but someone else, they'll take that 30-second answer and they'll spend all day crafting an answer that has 100 edits in it that makes that person, me, look really good. But I'm not trying to look really good. I'm just trying to be helpful. I mean, if I was trying to look really good, I wouldn't look like this. I would have at least shaved and not wear an old toque. And, I'd have a professional office, etc. So to me, it's not about the look. It's about the substance. And I think substance has to be authentic. And authentic is usually in real time so that the other person on the receiving end actually gets a sense that I am a real human being with thoughts, experiences, and flaws.
Yeah, I think very similar to what you're saying, Shaun, is that you can't buy authenticity. You can buy a lot of stuff, right? You can buy a lot of production value. You can buy a lot of answers right now if you want to, because there are people out there selling answers left, right, and center. But
all day long.
What makes something authentic is that it's not a cookie cutter answer, right? It's not, as we were saying in one of the other live chats, it's not pablum of the mind. We're not putting out a quote from Marcus Aurelius saying, that we should all be more in control of our emotions. Well, sure. Yeah, we should. How often have you put that into practice? How do you put it into practice? And then I want to know how Shaun does it. I want to, so that I can then compare how I do it and go, oh, maybe he's got a little bit better of an angle on it, or maybe I do. Maybe Zach does. Maybe this guy does. Or maybe somebody comes in and says, you know what, emotions are actually a really good thing and we shouldn't be trying to suppress them. And then we go, oh, that's a good point. How do you do that? And then so the authenticity creates conversation. Whereas, an answer, that's not a conversation. That's just an answer. Somebody asked me a question, my shoes are black. Cool, right? It's not really an authentic. It is an authentic answer, but it's not an authentic conversation. And
it's not a feedback.
Exactly. There's no back and forth. There's no give and take. And everything that I've noticed in the last little while from social media is buy this. I have the answers. Buy it. Versus,
should there be anonymity through adversity? So individuals that want to be a part of the forum, should they show up with Monkey Boy 012, or should they show up as themselves if they're ready to face themselves and learn?
I think that's a great question, and I think that's up to them. I mean, depending on where they are in their own personal journey and how comfortable they are about being called Monkey Boy 123, or simply being called Steve,
Right.
their actual name as an actual person, hanging out with other actual human beings. That's up to them. But whatever they want to call themselves and however much they want to participate, if they want to hang out in the deepest shadows at the back, known as Monkey Boy 123, better that than not hanging out at all. Because over the course of time, they'll get to see the feedback loops. I mean, let's talk about it for reals. In the live chats that we've done, our way is not this, a one-way direction, and then that's the end of the conversation. It's a refining process that is happening in real time, and the challenges that I bounced at Chance and the things that he's bounced at me, that's brought some gold. It's brought some good evolutionary processes forward between the two of us, and we've both grown from it for sure. And anyone who's been paying attention and watching it, I've heard from them that they're also growing through it as well. And it's because of a form of communication that relies on an evolutionary process, which requires an entire feedback loop, not just to drop in, have a sniff, and then drop out.
I think a lot of it also is that's an evolutionary process, right? If somebody doesn't really know what's going on and they just want to, put their foot in the door and kind of look and go, that's cool. There's conversations being taken place. Okay, cool. Maybe I'll sit in the back corner for a little while. And then eventually what usually happens in those types of situations is that the conversation will turn to something that person knows about. And it will engage them in some way, and then they'll move a little bit closer to the group so they can hear. And then they'll move a little bit closer to the group. And so that anonymity that, that a lot of, especially vets who just, they want to, nope, I don't want to put my face out there. It's a building experience. It's something that it's that little bit of adversity that they will work through eventually, or not. It just becomes an evolution. So if you want to sit back and hang out in the back and watch, cool. But if you want to build and you want to grow and you want to learn, then that is part of the evolution, that they eventually come forward. They step out of that anonymity. They step out of the shadows and into the light, and then they start expressing themselves. And that's how I got started. That's how Shaun got started, right? That's how you got started. We eventually got to a point where we were like, I have to say something, or I have to do something, or I have to get engaged somehow. And then you just step into the light a little bit and you look around and you see what's going on, and then you carry on from there. I think it's a really interesting part of the evolution too, to watch others go through that, which is part of the collective. It's going to be that same feedback loop, right? You're going to see others hit landmarks that you've gone past and go, oh yeah, I remember when I was there. Cool.
What has been the feedback though of veterans thus far in terms of, opening up the collective, having individuals enlist? What are they like right now? Are they interested? Are they happy for this? Are they nervous?
Well, I've been tracking the intake, the enlistments, as we should say. I've been tracking a lot of that. I have it a little spreadsheet as to what people are saying, and the big thing that I coined it: learn, build, grow. That's been the vast majority of what everybody says, is that they want to get involved to either learn from others, build themselves into something better, or grow as a community, or all three of those together, or two of those, some semblance of those. And that's been the reaction basically across the board. Everybody I've talked to, when I mention the collective, I describe what it is, and they're like, man, that's awesome. That's okay. So you guys are all just going to learn and grow together. And I'm like, yep. And they're like, I'm in. And so that's been, if you haven't enlisted yet, if you're watching and you haven't enlisted, go to the website, the-collective.ca, enlist, write down what your hopes for the collective are and what your aspirations are, and join the conversation, because that's how we all learn. And I think that's how we all learn collectively.
Well, for sure, join the conversation. And, like, I'm doing it anyway. Yep. I mean, I'm freaking doing live chats, and I love talking to people in live chats and learning from them. Tomorrow it'll be Yuri from Ukraine, and he wants to talk about special forces selection programs. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, let's do that. Because I'll have some things to say, he'll have some things to say, I'll learn some things, people who are listening will learn some things, and the freaking live chats are going to happen. So, I mean, if I'm learning and he's learning and other people who are listening to my goofy little Instagram page are learning, then why the heck not throw it into a central repository so that people can learn from a small Instagram page, but learn it on a much larger web-based platform called the-collective.ca. I mean, it isn't even an extra 1% effort for me to have a live chat with Yuri, either on my page or on the-collective.ca. So it's happening anyway. It's just a matter of whether people want to learn from these kind of conversations. So here's the biggest problem as I'm seeing it, is people are keen to listen to this kind of stuff, but they're having problems finding it. And unless they're a follower on my Instagram page, they're oblivious to these kind of conversations. And by the way, some of the conversations are pretty rad. So having a location where people can hop in and get some thought-provoking content, while at the same time possibly bumping into someone to their left and right who's interesting, that they can then engage in a process of back and forth feedback loops in order to then better understand, wow, I've never thought of being a professional dart player. Maybe I'll give that a try, or whatever.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So we've been rolling here for just about an hour, and I think we've
52 minutes.
52 minutes right now. We've been we've covered quite a gambit. Does anybody have any last thoughts on what the collective is, what it's going to be, what our plans are, what our goals are? Any last minute stuff before we let the interwebs have this?
And it's not a thought, it's a question. And don't repeat anything that you've said up till this point. The question is this: what does the collective mean to you?
I'm going to let Zach take that one while I think about it for a second.
After 52 minutes of talking, have a novel idea.
Mic drop. No
there
comment. That's where I'm ending it.
Oh my goodness, mic drop. Well, let's hear from the people. I think that's the thing. Put some comments down underneath. We're going to, what does the collective mean to you? And that is what we want to hear, so that we can build and we can learn, we can grow, and collectively. I think that's the key. I appreciate everyone.
And don't get it twisted. It's not homework that you should be bummed out about. It's stuff that you should be stoked about. I mean, you shouldn't be looking at this thing as, oh man, now I gotta. You should be thinking to yourself, yes, bring January 1st right now. I want to get after it. I want to do this thing. I want to get better. I want to be more awesome. That's what people should be taking away from this. You should be thinking, bring it.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Help us shape it.
I don't think I could end it any better way. Help us shape it. Let's do this. We'll see you on the next live, everybody. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Shaun, for joining us. And
thanks, buddy.
Until next time. We'll talk to you all later.
Peace.